Today's guest is Raynard Hannah. Raynard had a profound near-death experience, and today we're going to learn about it. Raynard, thank you for joining me, and welcome.
I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
All right, so my audience loves to hear about near-death experiences, and if you don't mind, can we start on the day that yours happened?
Yes, certainly. The day was, I know it exactly because it was my 43rd birthday that I planned this occasion. And so that was November 7th, 2013. And on all accounts, it should have been a regular day, as far as my wife and my dog and my step daughter was concerned. I was out to head to work. A tattoo shop I owned in Nashua, New Hampshire, for nearly 10 years. I was just going to work, but in my mind, I knew I was going to end it that day and end my life. And so I left the house trying to be normal, yet knowing I was leaving, saying goodbye to my wife for the last time. And my pug, my little black pug, my stepdaughter was already in school. And it was turmoil in my mind. I had to go in the basement and pull out a 32 caliber gun that I had hidden down there in the brick wall to take with me to the site that I decided to do the deed. And I said goodbyes as normally as I could possibly can, probably with a little deeper, stronger, longer hugs, which probably gave me away a little bit. But I was still off on my way, and it was a rainy day, and I chose to go to a cemetery because I'm an old goth, an old metalhead, and I'm a taphophile, and I enjoy cemeteries. I find a lot of peace in cemeteries, so I wanted to end my life there, in the cemetery. And Boscawen, I believe it was. No, it wasn't. I forget where. It was in New Hampshire. And so should I go into that, or
Sure.
go on with that?
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, I was basically, it was the oddest ride of my life, driving to my own execution. I still remember that as I recall, crossing over and everything. The whole experience was just going very slowly. And so I made it to the cemetery on this perfectly rainy day on my 43rd birthday. And I walked all the way to the back of it. It was a historic, typical New England cemetery, unique in its own, as they all are. So I moved to the back. I went over the stone wall, and I found a stone beyond the wall to lean against, to sit down. And I played some music. I'm such a music lover and a musician myself that I wanted to go out with some music, and I had an iPod at the time, and I played a band called Amber Asylum, and I just sat and listened to the music and waited for the moment. I didn't know how far into an album I was going to go before I made the move, but I was an agnostic up to that point, and so I believed in the spirit world. I believed in God. I believed in evil forces and forces of good and love and light. But I just never invested in any of that. I didn't buy any of what man understood of it, and I was pushed away from my upbringing, my Catholic upbringing. Looking back, it was due to its fundamentalism, its rigid fundamentalism, and I was like, no, this can't be what God is all about, and it tore me away, and I didn't want to believe in Satanism or Satan either. I thought, oh, why would I love a force that hates and loathes me? So I could never understand that. So I just chose to be agnostic, and I felt that left me open to demonic forces that probably led me to that situation I was in on that day. Because I had no protective forces, though I later found out that I still had protective guardian angels that were seeing, that saved me from earlier near-death experiences, other than taking my own life, just reckless living. But at that point, I did, probably due to my Christian upbringing or Catholic upbringing, and nothing against the Catholic Church, they're all trying to find their way to God. But it just didn't serve me right with that particular church I was introduced to it through. And, so I did reach out to God. I was like, well, I'm not going to reach out to demonic forces. I'm about to end my life and enter the other side, the other realm, and just leave myself, helpless to wherever I'm drawn as a spirit at that point. I knew I was going somewhere, and it probably wasn't good due to the life I had led up to that point, which was hideous, heinous, and ungodly. I led a rock star lifestyle times 12, and I was never really a rock star, but not due to ego or anything, just living very, I don't know, devilishly. I just, and godlessly. But I knew there was God, and I was about to reach out to him at the last minute. I said, like, God. So I sat there with the gun in hand and the headphones in as they are now. And I was like, God, if you're listening, I'm about to end it right now. And this was partly due to a court case that was pending. I was arrested recently before that, like maybe 2-3 months before that. I was investigated for nearly a year before that, and I was responsible for the crime, and I could have fought it, but I didn't have the funds because it was very circumstantial evidence. But I just decided, the jig is up. My life, everything I built at that point, a business, a home, a wife, it's all about to come crashing around me, and nobody knows it because I'm not letting up to who I was, this double life I was living, and all, the particular kinds of crimes I was living on the side, and not telling anybody. Didn't care for recognition, or I didn't want, But so I spoke to the spirit world. I was like, look, God, if I'm meant to live through this, I need you to take over right now, and because I'm about to end it, and yet I knew I wasn't heading for anywhere good. And I was like, God, I know I haven't been good to you. I haven't led a proper life. But if I'm not meant to die, if this is not your will, if this is not in the cards, please, I'm giving it up to you to take my arm. And when I swing it towards my head, normally a person would just put it towards their head, wherever they decide to put it, through the neck, through the mouth. I've considered all of it. Through the heart. Heart would be the most definite. I wouldn't be here talking to you if that was the case. Sorry about the mic. So I thought, in the temple, But then, just not long before I would take my life, or attempt to, I was at a party at my own house, and some veteran of the war was there, and he said, "Look, if you're captured by the enemy," this was just a conversation around the living room, and you still have your gun in hand, you want to shoot yourself behind the ear, whatever this lump is back here, anatomically, I'm not sure, but that's a definite death. So I took that to heart, and I said, "Oh, that's where I'm going to end myself." And I didn't tell him I was suicidal at the time, so he was basically instructing me on my own method of suicide that I already was constructing in my head secretly. And so I took that advice from him, that he later regretted. He found out that I knew, so I was heading that way. And meanwhile, that's where it landed. But I don't want to get ahead of myself. Basically, it was a prayer to whoever was listening on the other side, because I felt a presence beforehand. I was like, something's watching this. This is a moment where something, whether demons are gathering around me to grab my soul and take it away as soon as I pull the trigger, or angels. But I felt the presences, like there was so much around me at that moment. Yet no human life was around me. I was deep in a graveyard. In the back of that, over a wooden, a stone fence, and excuse my memory, but I struggle with brain damage. But so I felt the presences of some. So that's probably what coaxed me to talk to them and say, "Look, if I'm not meant to do this, I'm giving you this opportunity. I'm gonna hold the gun out way out over here, and I'm just gonna swing it towards my head, and then shoot once it gets towards my head. But I'm giving you the opportunity to take my arm and aim it in such a way that I should survive the gunshot." So I might be half blind, I might be half deaf, I might be mentally incapacitated in any number of ways. And I was willing to survive in any of those outcomes if I'm meant to live, because I knew a thing or two about spirituality and karma, and I was worried about the after effects and that it would have on my soul. So I knew I would escape this ordeal I was dealing with in this life, but I knew there was something else, coming for the act I was about to take. So I got up the courage, and it does take some courage. I don't like how people say, "Oh, suicide is a cowardly way out." Well, you've never strung a noose around your neck at the top of a stool, or a helium balloon around your head, or stood at the edge of a bridge, or a gun to your head, because it takes great courage to face death and enact it on yourself. When murderers sit on the execution chair crying, and who've been willing to take other people's lives, but not their own. It takes great courage, and I found that courage and the willingness to just, I don't want to go on with this life the way it's going. So, but I knew it would also give me an edge if I should survive and deal with the court case I was about to deal with. Give me leverage. But to what extent, I didn't know at that point. So I go ahead. I finally find the courage. I swing the gun towards me, and about as it gets to the halfway point, something grabs my arm, and it continues to swing. But I knew at that point, I'm talking mere half a second, which happens a lot more slowly, just like when you're about to face death in a car crash. It goes slow. Time slows down. And I felt the thing grab me, and it's an electrical shock of a feeling. It feels like a surge of energy and electricity flowing through you from where it touches you. And I know this feeling because I'm a taphophile, and many years earlier, I found a crypt in a graveyard, and I was walking with a friend, and this is pertinent to the story, how I recognize this feeling. From years earlier, I saw a vent of a crypt, and it fell off. It was a bronze vent, and it just allows air in and out so the bodies don't explode inside from the gas building up in the body. So I saw this vent, and I looked through, and I see a coffin in there. It's wooden, and I thought, oh, I'm going to touch the coffin and just be a creep. At the time when I was godless, and wow my friend who wouldn't do it, who was standing there watching me next to me. And I reach in. Once your hand's in, it was only as thin as my wrist, which is pretty thin. And once it's in, I couldn't see where my hand was. So I'm ready to feel for the coffin. And sure enough, something struck my hand, and it was a shocking sensation. Now, it didn't burn, and I'm sure it wouldn't have burnt my hand like electrocution would, but it's so shocking. It's still, you want to get away from it. And so then I started pulling my arm out, and the arm's battering up and down this little vent trying to come out and to get away from this shocking sensation. And I've heard it before in later years. That's how spirits, when they're aggressive towards you, that or when they're just trying to get your attention, they can touch you that way, and it feels like a shock that doesn't burn or it doesn't hurt, but it does startle you, and it does make you want it to stop. And so I felt that once again when the angel touched me. And it was so brief, and at halfway, that's all I felt. And but it was slowed down, and I could feel it, like the sensation. It was the same sensation when that spirit told me, "Get your hand out of my grave," by shocking it out of there. And it was the same sensation. And but sure enough, it made it to my head, and I know this angel grabbed hold of my arm like I asked it to seconds earlier, and or minutes earlier, whatever it was, and aimed it in such a way that I'd survive it. But it did end up behind my ear, the same place I intended to go, but it didn't blast off half my ear or anything. But the crater behind my ear, you can't really see it through the hair, but it's significant. It's more to the touch. You can certainly feel it. It migrated as the bone fused back together, but it was further back originally. And so it went. So that's where it struck me. And so, I mean, even the spirit knew I'm going to shoot myself either way. So whatever the result is, there's going to be some result. And I didn't know what it was going to be. But sure enough, I cross over in such a way that it's just a shift. I just got pushed out of my body into another dimension. I didn't go through a tunnel. I didn't have any woo-woo sensations. I just was somewhere. I just felt like I was shifting. I was like in this reality, and I got, in reality, if somebody was watching the incident, my head blasted to one direction. I fell off the rock, and I got major whiplash from the incident, and but that's later. And so I just got pushed. I felt me in my body just move out of my body, maybe a few feet in that direction into another realm. And later I found out, after studying this for so long, trying to make heads or tails of it, I realized that the other world, the other dimension, the other side is only a few feet from us. As layers of other dimensions, and sure enough, I just got pushed a few feet that way, and I didn't go through a tunnel. I was just immediately in that darkness, that realm of complete blackness, um, that I've heard from your other guests, and I've heard in other uh, videos as well, but not before that. Before that, this was new to me, and so I'm just there waiting. I'm just a consciousness at that point. I didn't feel I had a body. Um, I didn't. I just felt I was the only thing separating me from the blackness was my consciousness. I didn't feel it was blackness against a human body. Um, but this blackness, you can't make a room dark enough in this world to compare to that blackness. Just like they say, vibrance and colors and a variety of colors that don't exist on this world. People that have delved deeper into the other side through NDEs, this blackness is that much more vibrant than any blackness we could see in darkness on this world, and that's just a waiting realm. I thought I was ready for the worst, but I just I also remember that when the gun went off and I went from this world to the next, I felt that whoosh to the other side, and I also first thing I said to myself on the other side with my spirit brain, not my physical brain, but my eternal consciousness, I said, "Here we go." Here we go. That's all I remember. I was so gung ho about it at that time. I was just like, well, this is it. What's next? Let's do it. And I just said, here we go. And I didn't say anything else to myself while on the other side. I just patiently waited in this cool, just comfortable, not a threatening realm at all. I'm sure, like so many other people, it opens up to something else, whether hellish or heavenly. But no, I just stayed right there. And while they decided what to do with me, I didn't hear from anybody, but I stayed there for some time. And I didn't look around. I didn't try to go anywhere. But at some point, I just felt myself being pulled back. And I knew inherently, instinctively, that I was going back to my body. And I was, probably due to my earlier outer body meditations, that made me familiar with consciously, purposely leaving the body. In the early 90s, I practiced this through Carlos Castaneda and his books. And so I knew that sensation of moving spiritually between dimensions. And I just felt I was going back. And all I could say then, I do recall, is, no, 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 no. I don't want this. No, don't take me back there. And I didn't care if angels took me, if devils took me. I just wanted to be on the other side, because I wanted this certainty of knowing that, well, there's, is the tax man going to get me? Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to find food tomorrow? Am I going to freeze to death? None of that worry was there. I didn't feel heavenly bliss or love, but I at least knew that all the worldly problems were gone. And then I was getting sucked back, and I didn't know what condition my body was going to be. But there I was back in it, and in a slumped position in the leaves on the ground. And I was like, oh, I got to make use. I got to, calibrate what I got left. What am I supposed to do with this thing? Is it still operational? And so I could see light through my eyes, but it's also awful blurry. And I could see that I could get up and motivate my body and move it around. So I thought to myself, well, I have to go to the car I didn't bring the phone with me, thinking that I was going to die. So I had a flip phone at the time when people were just starting to get smartphones at the time, and so I have to make my way across this graveyard blindly back to a car that I didn't even bother to, remember where I had parked it, because I didn't think I was going back to it. And but I got to call my wife. I guess that was, I knew at that time. Oh, no, no, no. Just before that, I searched through the leaves for the gun, because I already felt the mess that my head was in, the blood that was running down me, and I just wanted to be done with it. And I found the gun in the grass. It got away from me a little ways, and I recocked it. And I was like, no, I'm just gonna. I forgot the deal I made with the angel at that point. I just wanted to get back to where I was heading, and I didn't even have anything, at that point to say, oh, that was worth going back to, because it was just that black realm. I never got beyond that. And but I thought, hey, at least it was peaceful. It wasn't threatening. I'll go there. So I pick up the gun, I recock it, and it's jammed. The thing is jammed. It was brand new, fairly brand new. It was only a year old. I only took it to the gun range once, and I took my wife there, and she shot it for the first time. And to think that my wife would have had to live knowing she shot the same gun I ended my life with, but it was jammed. And I took that as divine intervention, Jeff. That no, we re-aimed that gun so you can survive this. Now you're gonna, you asked us, we came through. Now you're gonna live this out. And they wouldn't let me reshoot myself, which I was ready to kill myself a second time, in a matter of minutes apart. And so I was like, that's jammed. I couldn't get it to operate. So maybe dirt got in it. I don't know technically. But so I made my way back to the car. I found the flip phone. I didn't even know what graveyard I was in. The name of the town still escapes me. But I told my wife on the phone, in whatever state I was in, honey, it was the graveyard. We took our friend from New Jersey to visit while he came up to visit us. And remember, we took pictures while we threw leaves up in the air, while they were in mid. And because of that picture, she was able to remember. I mean, we were at I dragged her. She wasn't a taphophile like me, but I dragged her to so many New England graveyards. And if you live in New England, we got the most graveyards because we're the oldest corner of America. And we got the oldest graveyards. We got more of them than anybody else. And I've taken her to so many. And she had to know which one I was at, because I couldn't tell her. I didn't know what town I was in. But she knew. And I, for some reason, went back to the gun after, I don't know if so I went back to the gun or the site, and I sat down and waited for the police or whatever. And I remember someone trying to get my attention, and I was sitting in an Indian position. I was alerted again, and I saw the cop. He had his hand on his holster because I had a gun nearby. And I was like, look, I tried to end myself. I don't know. This is where I'm at right now. So he called the ambulance, and I don't remember anything from that point, but they got me on the stretcher. They took me to the biggest hospital in New Hampshire, which is at the capital nearby, Concord, New Hampshire, and they couldn't save me. I died apparently 2 more times on the way to the hospital, that they revived me. It was later in the records I found out, because I didn't have 2 more near-death experiences that I was aware of. So they had to helicopter me to Boston General Hospital, which is the largest hospital in all of New England. And there I would stay for 2 more months in a psych ward with a lot of mentally troubled people, which I guess I was one of them at the time. And I kind of liked it there, but they put me in a certain ward for, you know, 24-hour watch and stuff until they were more comfortable with me. But so that was that, I suppose. As far as the near-death experience, I didn't travel too far, but in my outer body experiences through Carlos Castaneda many years earlier in the early 90s, I had traveled much further into the outer realms purposefully than I did in my near-death experience, where I think it was like 1992. I was reading this book, and to learn how to leave the body through Carlos Castaneda, his guru was teaching him that you have to master your dreams first before you even try to leave the body. So eventually, at some point, you're dreaming, and you have to realize in your dream, well, wait a minute, this is a dream. I'm in my dream body, and once you've even realized that, then you have to try to control yourself in your dream, not just let your dreams control you. And just, you know, many times we just want to sleep and rest, and we just let the dream happen like a TV show. But Carlos Castaneda says, no, stop and realize you're in a dream, and you could shape the dream any way you like, just like you can in a spirit form on the other side. You could shape your reality. That's the norm on the other side. Well, that's sort of like dreams are. You can control them if you like. And so there was just one dream that happened. I was on a roller coaster in a dream. I was like, wait a minute, I'm in this dream. What am I supposed to do now? I realize I'm in the dream. Now I'm supposed to do something that Carlos Castaneda told, a training technique to control the dream. So I'm supposed to. So the roller coaster was heading downhill, and as I realized I was in a dream, so then I started controlling the dream, and the roller coaster ended up in what looked like a warehouse with garage doors. And the doors were open, and they looked out into a woodland just beyond a small parking lot, and the roller coaster was going down slow, unlike a normal roller coaster, and I saw the end of the tracks, and they just stopped, empty, you know, nowhere to land, but they just kind of came off the track sideways, and I just fell sideways off the track, and I'm watching myself as I'm controlling the dream. I'm controlling the roller coaster, and it goes sideways, and now I'm looking out. I don't know why I'm in a warehouse, some commercial business, but that's just where it was. And I saw the woods out in front of me, and Carlos Castaneda's guru, I forget his name, taught Carlos to take your hand now and place it in front of your face and hold it there as long as you can. And that's you exercising your dream state, mastering that ability. And I did just that. I took my dream hand and I held it there. And I was like, wow, I'm holding my dream hand in front of my face. And sure enough, I woke up from the excitement of that. And it wasn't long after that I would master purposefully just going into meditation. Some people accidentally leave their body from just meditating, but this is about doing it meaningfully. And I happened to be in bed with my girlfriend at the time, and she was fast asleep, and I decided I was playing some Country Joe and the Fish, some mellow song they have that I would just put on repeat, that helped me to get into that state. And so that's playing, and sure enough, my eyes are closed, and I'm purposely just laying there in like coffin state, just because I'm all gothy or whatever. I don't know why I was laying like that, but oh sorry, and so the eyes are closed and relaxed, but they start fluttering. They start fluttering involuntarily, and this motor, this otherworldly engine, starts starting up. It's not an engine, but that's what it sounds like. This powerful energy starts. It's like, okay, this is the mechanism that pulls my spirit from the body that I'm achieving purposefully through meditation. And sure enough, my spirit lifts out of the body and starts moving down a tunnel. That's where I had the tunnel experience. And these ring-like lights start going by, showing me that I'm in motion. And I'm moving down this tunnel, but in a laying position, the same position I'm laying in my bed. I'm moving feet first through this tunnel in the very same position I'm laying. And then I move into this realm where I'm floating, weightless, through this peaceful realm. But I do look down. This is early 90s, and this is as clear as today, clear as any near-death experience, because the other world is the real world, and our spiritual memory is more fastened, is more concrete, and it just sticks with you more than just passive memories of this lifetime. That the body has to just push out. All right, that's useless. We don't really need that. We need to make room for that. Leave that out. But every experience from your spirituality can be recalled like it's just happening as you're recalling it. And so that's what's happening. And I happen to look over my shoulder in my laying position, and below me, I'd say about 12 feet down, is spirits. For whatever reason, they're down there, and they're just shoulder to shoulder, a sea of just an ocean of spirits. They're not waving like an ocean. They're just still, and they're soft, blurry, and black. I see they're just their heads and shoulders. They're just too tightly fitted to see anything below that, and they're just down there, and I'm just above them, floating by. And that was enough to say, I don't know where I am. I probably shouldn't go any further, because I basically skipped to the last page. I was like, how do you do this? I just wanted to learn how to leave the body. I don't want to learn all the in between. And apparently I learned how to do this years earlier than Carlos himself learned how to do it. I learned within weeks. Well, let me tell you, I can't do it anymore. But don't let me get ahead of myself. Ultimately, I did get sucked back, and I had a friend who actually went up top of a mountain, lived in a cave, ate bugs, and meditated for so long, like Indonesian people do, if I'm saying that right. That they could meditate, and they look like corpses. They've been meditating so long. They have bodies that are apparently still meditating, but they look to us like they're dead, and they keep them upright in an Indian position, Indian style, whatever. And that's what he was doing. He damaged his body from meditating like that so long. And he's like, I told him about it. And he's like, don't do it, dude. You have to know where you're going on the other side. I was like, well, all I wanted to do is just stay in this realm and roam around and scare my friends like a ghost. I was like, such a dummy, at the time. I'm like in my early 20s. I'm 50 now. But I was like, instead, I didn't know where I was going. So I went into another realm where all these, this ocean of spirits were. And I purposely pulled myself back. And that's when he says, you got to know where you're going, what you're doing. And I started to take it more seriously. And then from there, I would just, I taught my girlfriend at the time of 4 years. I was like, you got to try this. Because when I got sucked back, I was thrusted back in the body and I jolted upwards and I got her awake. And I was like, oh my God, you wouldn't know what I just been through. I got it. And I just, oh, sorry. And I just, I showed her how to do it. I was like, well, I'm going to take you through the process. And I just hypnotized her basically into a meditative state. And she started leaving. And she only got to the fluttering state, the motor, and just pulling out. And then that was enough for her, because you remain conscious through this and you can pull yourself back anytime. And that's as far as she got. And she's like, nope, that's true. That happens. I didn't want to get any further, but it's good she didn't. She wouldn't know what she was, be like a 5-year-old in a car, taking over the wheel at 50 miles an hour. You don't know what you're doing over there. And many years later, into 1998, I met another girl in Southern Connecticut, and in my bedroom there, I talked her through it, and she went to that meditative state, and she moved just so far out that it spooked her. It spooked her, just like it spooked my earlier girlfriend, and then she rushed back into the body, and she's like, nope, I don't want to know. That was enough for me, And now I couldn't walk anybody through it because it's so many years ago. And but up until recently, in 2015-16, I spent a county year in jail in New Hampshire for that case. I took a plea bargain. They ultimately felt sorry for me. I shouldn't have owned that gun while I was under investigation, and they could have gave me more years for that. I was facing 15, 30 years, and I got 8 months. So talk about, how the spirit world also used that incident to, okay, we're going to help you get past your mistakes in life. Just don't do it again. You're going to, you're going to be enlightened, and you're going to be on a new path. And that ultimately led me to of course, I have to, I have to get away from the evil that drew me to wanting to off myself. And so, I could look into Buddhism, I could look into Islam, I could look into all this, but I felt I could critique all that, and it just didn't make sense to me, maybe culturally or whatever. I didn't understand it. But I was like, okay, Jesus, I understand that. I was introduced to him early in life. Maybe if I could come to him on my own terms, and I found him through Christianity. That's just I think it's the devil's work that cause all these different sects of our religion, evangelism, Jehovah's Witness, Baptist, Presbyterian. That you can't tell me that isn't the devil trying to trip us up in our own faith and our own path to Jesus, when ultimately I think it's just Christianity, and the other ones just kind of convolute the message. So I just figured I just want to know what Jesus has to say. I don't want to know all the religions that were formed around what he had to say. And I just found Christianity to be the purest, truest path back to just Jesus' teachings. And I thought, well, sure enough, I didn't just adopt Jesus after that. I had 8 months in jail, and I tried to meditate, to outer body meditate in jail. They won't keep me in here. I know how to leave my body. It's been many years since, but no, because it's been so many years and so many experiences, and I've become so jaded and broken in life that I couldn't, I wasn't in that simplistic early 90s younger self state of mind. I think much more complex, and I couldn't achieve that anymore. So I was stuck in jail for those 8 months. But I did try to find during that time, my way back to Jesus to get to know him better, because I need some defense. I'm a darker spirit. I'm a darker natured person to this very day. You'll see behind me maybe some of my paintings, and I'm not influenced or inspired to draw angelic scenes or loving, peaceful, serene scenes. I'm still a tormented soul. I still have a dark nature about me, and God's got his work cut out for me, more so maybe than some people. And so what's the point? But you'll notice none of my darker imagery is occultish or satanic. It's just spooky, because I just have a knack for that kind of imagery, and I'm known for it. I'm in the comics and the heavy metal world. I've done album covers and for notable bands, and that's just what I'm known for. And I just don't want to break away from that. I don't think the dark imagery or my naturally dark nature makes me evil. There's a division there. There's darkness, and then there's evil. And I think there's lots of dark stories in the Bible, and that are fascinating. But I'm just dark natured. I can't help it. Maybe it's a Scorpio. They say Scorpios are darker people. I don't discredit the horoscopes just because now I'm Christian. I don't read them anymore, but I know there's something to them. But it's my makeup. So I know I have a harder time, staying with the light. So I do need someone like Jesus. I think we all do, but to keep me on the right path.
First, I want to say thank you for sharing those parts of your life with us. And besides becoming a Christian, what other ways have you changed since that incident?
Well, that's really it. I mean, I'm a Christian, but God sees a lump of soft clay in me, and I just like, God, just reshape me. Just more of you, less of me, as we say. I need a lot less of me, because I definitely came from a place of ego, and as artists and musicians tend to do, and I just feel like I'm a much gentler. I was always very patient with my fellow man, but I'm just much more gentler. I'm much more genuine. When I always had a soft spot for handicapped people, for mentally handicapped people, but I have more so now. I walk the walk. Just the other night, I was in Portland, Maine, walking the streets, and I had my headphones on, listening to some metal band, and some obviously homeless man was on a bench beside me with his shopping cart full of his only belongings in life, and he was trying to get my attention, and I was in my own little world as I'm passing him, but I just caught that he was trying to get my attention. And then he threw his hands up in frustration, realizing, oh, here's just another person that don't care about me sitting here. And all I said was, good night. Sorry, good night. And I just kept walking. I was like, wait, that was my opportunity. I got this new cross just the other night. It's 2 days ago, and I'm wearing it, and I'm not living it. And so I stopped. I wanted to finish hearing my song, but I stopped, and I was like, what should I do? And I'm going to go back and apologize to this man and ask how I can help. And so I did. I finished my song, and I go back, and I just talk to him a little bit. And I say, how you doing out here? And, are people helping you? Are you getting by? And then I ask, can I help you? Would you be okay if I just gave you some money to help you on your way?" And because at first he was a little aggressive and a little standoffish, but I talked to him a little bit and I saw him softening up, and then I said, "Would you mind if I gave you a little money?" And he was fine with that. And I threw him a 20, and you can't give them a whole lot, but you give them a little, and then you hope the next person does, and everybody just does their part, and these people their needs would be met. And so that's the person I am today, and I do a lot of volunteer work. So I was released from prison 2016, and I went right into volunteer work. I went to soup kitchens. I went to veterans hospitals. I went to homeless pet shelters and walked the dogs and whatever I could find. And through my church, I would go to the hospices. I was on the worship team as a drummer and a bongo player, because I'm a percussionist and a vocalist, but I don't do the vocals with the worship team. I do with the metal bands I'm in. But and we would go to the hospice and perform for those nearing the ends of their lives, and we try to, we would set out communion for them, which is the body and blood of Christ, and try to help them on their way to the other side and entertain them through some music. And so whatever I could do, I'm just a vessel for the Lord now, but a servant of God, but I'm still tough as nails and still jaded, and I'm still working on the broken self that I came from, the very evil background I come from, that you just don't wash that away. And I'm still suicidally depressed. And they say, some of your guests, like, you come back even more depressed. Well, I was more depressed just coming back from that black realm. I thought that was better than what the uncertainty of this life. Never mind the heavenly escapes that these people go to, and then they have to come back and leave that for a time. That's horrible. So I'm still suicidally depressed to this day, but God assists me with that. The same way, someone who loses their leg in a war or an accident, God's not going to let you grow your leg back just because you found God, but He's going to give you the strength it takes and the empowerment to live with whatever impairment you're faced with in life. And mine's just suicidal depression to this day, but and whatever mental obstructions I face through my brain damage, but that's very little. I'm a better illustrator than I was before the accident. The paintings I do are just, and the tattoo work I do now is so much better. So I'm an improved person coming back as a physically damaged person. And one more thing I want to add, which is so odd, about 2 years ago, 2018, 19, I was living in southern New Jersey, and I was trying to reform my band with a musician down there, and my band from New Hampshire, but I'm in southern New Jersey trying to find new guys, metalhead down there. I'm like, hey, he's like, well, he just lost a son. He had another son, and he was introducing him to metal. And he's like, well, I'm going to an obituary show, a death metal band called Obituary, and maybe you want to come along with me to that show. And I'm trying to win this guy over as my guitarist, who's a very good guitarist. And I was like, yeah, I'll go to the show. As far as I'm concerned, I'll never have to see another show again in my life. Be happy. I've seen so many metal shows in so many countries. I'm done with it. I've just had my fill. And I still listen to it, but I don't need the live experience anymore. But I'm trying to win this guy over, and so I'll go. And I go, and he's way up to the front of the stage right before the band's about to go on, the leading band obituary. And so I go up there with him. I don't want to be up there because it's going to be a massive mosh pit. I'm 48 at the time. And I'm like, I don't need to be in this mosh pit. I've been in mosh pits before, surfing the crowd, jumping off stage. I've done all that crazy stuff. I'm too old for that now. But I've lured into it by this other older guy who shouldn't be there, but he's trying to impress his son or whatever. And so the band goes on, and I'm telling you, Jeff, this band wasn't on 2 minutes, and I'm squished in front of the stage, and the pit is forming behind me. And this is like a tornado that forms in a crowd of young adolescents, angry youth. It's just a tornado of anger and hate, and flesh and bone, and I don't want to be a part of this, but I'm just like, okay, I'm wishing for the best. And I'm turned around, not towards the band, trying to watch my back that these people don't knock me out, because I got brain damage from my gunshot incident. And the bullet's still in my brain. I have shrapnel, I have hair fragments, bone fragments in my brain, all scattered out. It ricocheted my brain. My brain is Swiss cheese. And I just don't know. I don't have health insurance. I don't know what it takes to just snap to hemorrhage my brain and just leave me dead. So I don't get into fights. I'm nonviolent. I'm not worried about that, but I'm worried about someone hitting me such a way that I die on the spot. But sure enough, I'm turned around facing them, and somebody gets up on stage and is ready to crowd dive. And the crowd's supposed to just hold you up and carry out until you fall into the crowd, and you do it again, and it's whatever. But this guy goes ahead and does that in my direction, and I'm not looking at him because I'm looking at the mosh pit forming behind me, watching out for them. And his work boot comes right on my head like a missile, like a just perfectly aligned with the center of my dome, and it's a steel toe boot. I just turn around just enough time to see it coming at me, not enough time to avoid it. And he just kicks down with a steel toe boot in the center of my head, my already damaged brain, and boom! I just feel that thing just take me out, and I see white. I don't see blackness at that point. I just see white, and so I lose control of my body, and yet I maintain consciousness at this point. I'm seeing white, and I feel my body heading for the floor. I just start falling backwards, standing position, then I'm just heading backwards, not crumpling downward, but just falling over, and I'm backwards, and I'm like, oh, that's a concrete floor. And as I'm falling, I'm thinking all these thoughts. Once again, time slows down. It's like one of those near-death experiences again. And here it goes. And as soon as my head hits that floor, and if nobody catches me midway, it's going to hit that concrete. It's going to shake up whatever is going on in my head already, and I'm done. I'm going to die at an obituary concert, and that's going to be perfect for a metalhead. It's going to show up in the obituaries tomorrow that I died at an obituary show. I'm thinking this as I'm heading for the floor, and I'm thinking, how ironic. This is kind of pretty cool. It's a good way to die, I guess. But I wasn't ready to go at that point, and but here it is, and I feel my head thud against the floor. I don't feel the pain or nothing, but my head bounces off the concrete, the back of my head, and I'm just waiting to die. But no, instead, I become alert and gain control of my body slowly enough. Someone's picking me up. It's a security guard, and he's pushing me through the crowd, getting me out of the violence section. And I was like, stick with me. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm still waiting for a vessel to pop in my brain or something. And instead, I'm gaining full control of my body, and I'm not even hurt. There's not even a bump in my head. I'm like, I'm fine. This is crazy. And I go upstairs and watch the rest of the show. and buy a T-shirt from one of the bands, and I'm in great shape. I'm like, what was that? And later on, I learned, I don't know how I learned it, but it just became intuitive that that needed to happen, because if I didn't hit the floor that day, it was almost like I'm dating myself, but Happy Days, the TV show, Fonzie would hit the jukebox in such a way that the music would go on without him having to drop a dime. And I think that's what happened to me. I needed that certain jolt. It was basically the surgery I never got on my brain. They just stitched it up and hoped for the best. I never got nothing. And but I needed something, and I just needed that thud. It was just that adjustment to my brain that I needed to go on, or I wasn't going to go on much longer. That was my surgery, that hitting the floor at an obituary show. And I'm sure of it. I don't know why I'm sure of it, but that was the angelic look. You need to go to that show. You need to get hit, and this is how we're just going to fix you for the majority of your life. So insane. I developed psychic skills after my first near-death experience, with the gunshot wound as well. We didn't talk about, so I went under. So I left the hospital after 2 months, Boston General, and I went immediately under house arrest with a ankle bracelet, monitoring bracelet, monitoring my movements, that I didn't leave the house too far. And I stayed there on house arrest for 2 years while I recovered from my head injury. So at that time, I was still doing interviews. I just released an album before I shot myself. We just recorded an album. And then I was in the hospital for 2 months, and I come out and I started promoting the album. It's all I could do under house arrest. But I was dealing with all these psychic abilities that I wasn't aware of. Such abilities even existed. Now, I haven't heard of this one ability from anyone else who suffered NDEs but myself, among other abilities I had. First thing, everybody looked like cartoons. Like if I was looking at you right now, you would look like Elmer Fudd, the Elmer Fudd version of yourself. Just ridiculous. People look ridiculous. And I couldn't look at people for a while. And then if I looked at the stars, they looked like water bugs moving around the sky. Everything just, my brain had to rewire. I don't think that was spiritual. That was just my brain having to rewire to this reality. But what was spiritual was, I would go on these little walks around the house in Andover, New Hampshire, deep in the woods, in the mountains, very peaceful. Horses next door I made friends with for those 2 years. And I would get these questions during these walks, like questions any of us would have, the meaning of life questions, the big questions. But as soon as I would have this question, like, God, why do we suffer? God, what's the meaning of this? Actually, I wasn't even asking God. I was just asking myself. But God would reply, and all of a sudden, this rush of information would come into my head. But it would start out with just the answer. Well, I didn't expect to get that answer. That's a big answer. But I could wrap my brain around it. But then the answers would start expanding in my brain, and it was just a download of information. Oh, you like that? Well, here's some more. And it just wouldn't stop. And it was just like, well, I don't know how to stop this incoming information that nobody knows on this earth. It's like our brains can't contain that much information. They're just not that evolved yet. And I would go into a panic, and I would just fall into a ball and try to stop my brain. And then I'd have to be careful, because, another time it would slow down, it would stop. But another time I would just have another thought. And then instead of just the answer coming to me, or I wouldn't even, you don't get the answer. You just get the thought, what is this all about? But then I got the answer, but then it just wouldn't stop. I get more and more information. So I'd be afraid to even think about stuff. And that went on for at least a year. And then that would slow down because I didn't want it. I didn't want to exercise it. But a lot of that information stayed with me. It's just as it passed through my head, I wasn't asking for that, but I was like, oh, I know that now. And it stayed with me. So some of these big questions are just stuck in my head. And to this day, if it's not stuck in my head, I could sit quietly long enough and I will get that answer. I don't have that information retained in my head, but I still can have it downloaded to me if I stick with the question long enough.
That's amazing.
So on my YouTube channel, if people ask me stuff, I say, well, I don't know if I have the answer, but I'll sit with it. And if it comes to me, I'll tell you, but I don't know,
well,
due to my own knowledge.
Let me change gears on you because I'm running out of time here.
Sure.
What is your YouTube channel? First of all.
Yes, it's Uncanny. Oh no, YouTube is Razor Wrecker, Rayzer Wrecker, as it's spelled. There I go into my taphophile interests. I go to graveyards. I recite inscriptions from graves, and sometimes I get a EVP, in the graveyard or whatever. Just I just go into whatever on there. And I have my Facebook channel, Uncanny Conceptions. That's just where you can see my artwork. It's just my art gallery.
Yes, I was going to ask you that because you're an illustrator. Is that where your website is? It's on Facebook, or do you have a separate website for that?
Oh, it's just on Facebook. I used to have a website called Maggot's Delight, but that's no longer operational. But
well, I'll put links to those. I'll put links to those in the description. Raynard, before we finish it up here, do you have one last message that you'd like to share with the audience?
Let me see. If I wrote anything down here. Oh yeah, here's a great message. Addiction is such a stigma in society, and I think a lot of near NDEers suffer addiction as I do, but for different reasons than other people suffer chemical addictions like weed and alcohol. Now, I only like beer, some hard liquor, and weed. I don't mess with hard drugs. I don't mess with psych meds, but a lot of us struggle with alcohol and weed addiction, and I think why we do is different than other people do, and that's mainly because we're trying to relive that other side euphoria and that comfort zone, and where other people are just looking for escape similarly, but many of us do suffer addiction. Not all of us, but I'm one of them. I don't suffer. I don't drink to get drunk. I don't smoke to get high. I do it to deal with my PTSD. But I think a lot of us are prone to addiction, and we're seeking that blissful high of what we felt while we were on the other side. And I just hope we're better understood for that. But other than that, I just hope people find their way to God, because God is the source of love. And if you truly think you love somebody without God in your life, how are you loving if you're not drawing from the only well that is of love, and that's God? So I would just sit with that thought. If if you're living a godless lifestyle, and you're struggling, and you're not really feeling love, you ought to go to the source and get to that well, because you can't love without God, as far as I'm concerned. And Jesus is a good when you're doing it. So.
Raynard, thank you for that message, and thank you for sharing your life with us today and giving me some of your time. I really appreciate you. I wish you massive success, and have a great evening.
And I appreciate so much this opportunity to get the message out to your audience, and I'm so grateful, and may God bless you richly in life, Jeff.
Thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.